Welcome on to the next video. Today we are talking strength and conditioning training for ITB. If you've ever had an ITB injury, you'll know how painful it can be. And we're going to be joined by our strength and conditioning coach, Shona Hendricks, to talk all about things you can do to prevent ITB, but also things you can do once you have ITB from an S&C perspective. My name is Brad. I'm from CoachParry.com. That's where we help runners like you become fitter, faster, and stronger. Shona and I will be talking about different exercises in the video today. If you want to download our free strength training program that'll aid you with the ITB, all you need to do is click on the link that's above the screen right now. Well, we're talking ITB and strength and conditioning today. Shona Hendricks. Shona, before we get into some of the things you can do from an S&C perspective for ITB, can you give us just the layman's term, what is ITB?
Well, we use the word ITB quite incorrectly all the time. The ITB is essentially the band. So it's the iliotibial band. What we're going to be referring to is ITBS, so iliotibial band syndrome. So the ITB or the IT band essentially is a connective tissue that connects some of the anterior and posterior muscles. So in plain English, that's one of the hip muscles in the front and your glutes at the back. So it's really connective tissue, and so ITBS or ITB syndrome is when that connective tissue gets a little bit tight or inflamed.
Okay, let's talk about, it's a very common running injury. Let's talk about some of the things you can do from a strength and conditioning perspective to first of all sort of build yourself up that you don't get it, and then we'll touch on what to do if you do have it. What are some of the things, like just from a maintenance perspective, you can do as far as strength and conditioning goes to avoid getting ITBS, as you say?
Yeah, so I think one of there's many causes for it. So if we look at the causes, that'll help us define what we need to do from a strength point of view. So and that's good down from a lack of strength, which would then cause some biomechanical issues. But really, what you're wanting to do is strengthen your pelvic area, so the glutes and hip area, and a lot of your posterior chain. So glutes, hamstrings. If you're getting that right, because what tends to happen is your hips become quite internally rotated, and if we can make sure that those remain open, it keeps your whole running gait in check. So making sure that we're working on the strength and stability in and around that hip area would be first and foremost. And obviously there's a whole load of exercises that we can do to ensure that hip area is being maintained nice and strong, particularly for the load that running requires.
Shona, and you mentioned the word chain. I think that's important to bear in mind here, because as much as we're focusing on one area of the leg, it's all connected. So it's a weakness somewhere else that could be reflecting on this. So to have an overall strength regime is probably the best way to go about it.
Yeah, it's massive. Everything is connected, and like you say, it is a chain, and one thing can affect the other thing. So if you have a poor strength sort of aspect, that can affect the biomechanics of the way you run and your entire running gait, and vice versa. Or if you perhaps don't have the right shoes, that can also affect all of that sort of stuff. But we're speaking particularly strength here, and so to ensure that you have that strength component down, yes, that'll really help a lot of the running gaits and make sure that stuff stays in check, because really, running is it's catabolic. It breaks down. It's a repetitive motion, and you need to ensure that you have the strength then to maintain that or sustain that, rather. That would be a better way to put it.
Let's talk about what to do if you do have it. What are some of the things you can do to alleviate the pain? Because it's pretty uncomfortable running with a sort of inflamed ITB. But is there anything you can do to make it slightly better that will allow you to continue running? What are some of the things you need to do from a strength and conditioning point of view?
There's a couple of things, and the thing with ITB is that it can become chronic really quickly. So not strength related, but don't run through it. I know runners tend to run through a lot of pain, and that's not ideal. We're wanting to make sure that doesn't become chronic, because then it's really difficult to get rid of ITB. So first and foremost, a little bit of rest, but unfortunately in this instance it's similar. It's not similar to something like shin splints, where rest is going to fix it. So a little bit of rest so that you're not having that compounding effect, but from a strength and conditioning point of view specifically, you really, while you're strengthening that posterior chain, you want to be loosening up or stretching your hip flexors. So that combination of the stretching the hip flexors and the strengthening of the glutes and the hips, that would really make a big difference. And a lot of people forget that stretching part of the hip flexors, that combination is key. And just generally what I found is if runners are doing that, if runners are getting the strength right, the stretching right, physio, just a little bit of physio to help loosen up that area is always golden.
It's almost like pulling your fingers down a blackboard. Does foam rolling help? I can just think the pain is not pretty, but would foam rolling help if you do have an inflamed sort of ITB?
It is not fun. It is sore, but yes, it will help, and it'll help. I would think more in the maintenance period. So if it's not currently inflamed, then yes, I think it helps keeping that IT band loose. That it does definitely help. It's not a fun thing to do. It is extremely painful. The contraindication of that is if it is already inflamed, the more you foam roll on it, then that's going to get even worse. So if you are experiencing a lot of pain with that, I'd suggest physio and making sure that they are loosening it up. But if you're maintaining and doing your strength work and the stretching while you're running and you're not symptomatic, yeah, the foam rolling or massage therapy is key in that instant, definitely.
Thanks for joining us on this video. Don't forget, if you don't want to miss any of these videos that we put out, hit the subscribe button over here. You can catch our latest video over here, and one of our most popular is over here. And also, if you want to shave 10 minutes off your PB, all you need to do is download our free strength training program. You can get that right here.